Wrapping up this edition of Taking Stock on ENCA with Owen Nkomo from Inkunzi Investments and Paul Theron, the Managing Director of Vestact. As we go into 2020 with business confidence from its 20-year lows, there's just, you go around, you talk to people, there's not exuberance, there's not over-enthusiastic behavior, but people are beginning to think that perhaps we've bottomed. I mean, we're in a
I think businesses across the economy, those that have survived, are in a better position because a lot of them have right-sized their businesses. Some of them have been able to shake off weaker competitors, both local and foreign, who've exited the market. So I think things do look better. And I think the confidence and outlook is better because some of the early indications of the new era of government that Owen referred to are there. You know, a few prosecutions, some indications that the NPA is starting to move, the difficulties that the SOEs are in, which are at least being addressed. That gives cause, I think, for slightly, modestly, carefully considering further capital investment in the private sector.
Yeah, and that's a big one. Something like an Andre de Ruyter. Let's shake that particular tree. Nampak this week came out with results. They made a profit of 1.2 billion rand in 2018, came out with a 370 million rand loss. They'd overinvested in places like Angola and Zimbabwe and Nigeria, and they're struggling to get money out of some of those territories. I mean, all it shows, I suppose, is that Andre de Ruyter is human and fallible, and he's made mistakes within Nampak. But he's the guy that the country depends on in terms of getting the electricity grid stable and recovering.
Yeah, so he's got quite a difficult task. You know, I mean, social media has had a field day, you know, having a look at his performance and just looking at the share price. And, you know, some people arguing that, you know, it's not necessarily a full reflection of his capabilities.
Well, there are those who argue, including Johan Rupert, who shouted at me on social media the other day saying, you know, Nampak wouldn't exist anymore had it not been for de Ruyter. So perhaps we need to give him a bit more credit.
I reckon let's give him a bit more time. And obviously managing in a state-owned enterprise is a different can of worms altogether. I think it will take him a long time
The old phrase is kettle of fish, but can of worms is more appropriate where we are, yes.
Absolutely. It's a wormy affair at Eskom. So, I mean, he's going to have to deal with a lot of deworming the entity. There's politics. there's, you know, people with vested interest. And I think, you know, we speak about state capture and we talk about the Guptas. And I think if you go into some of those contracts at Eskom, you can start to question if state capture started 10 years ago.
No, but you know, you look at corporate complicity in the state capture project. You look at the guys who were involved in helping SARS rip the ring out of the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And those were multinationals, those were big consultancies. Stefanuti Stocks, as you mentioned earlier, has got itself caught up in paying money into a slush fund that was used for the personal interests of executives at Eskom. I mean, South African corporates have been complicit.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I said earlier that it's both the government side that needs to get taken care of and the corporate side that needs to get sorted as well. I think as long as we don't see Vision South Africa through the same eyes, guys, I think we'll continue to struggle as a country. It would be great to be sitting and saying Andre de Ruyter is going there, and I think he's going to be welcomed. His new ideas are going to be accepted. It's going to be very difficult in a country where, for example, the race card always gets thrown out there. It doesn't matter how great you might have your ideas, but people will always pick on you for being white, if you're leading a black company, etc. Even if he's got the best ideas to take Eskom out of his doldrums, I think those little things, I mean, for me, are a big concern in a place where we're trying to get the country to start working. You know, I think it's a matter of time before he might probably throw in his towel as well, just like Pagamani had
we
to
hope
the
not.
Jeans,
I mean,
you know?
he's a grown man who knows the coal industry very well. That's what he ran at Sasol. He's a grown up. He's hopefully gone into this thing with his eyes wide open. We hit 2020. We get through the holiday period, and there's this quiet January period, Paul Theron. Then we get closer to the budget, and we get all the forecasts coming through for the budget. National Treasury then starts drawing up the budget. Moody's then comes in, and they start sharpening their pencils, and they start waiting like vultures in the Kruger Park for the carrion of South Africa. I mean,
What a metaphor.
I know. I'm depressed myself. And we always try and end on a high note. But, I mean, is a Moody's downgrade half of 2020
I think it is
inevitable?
because the fiscal path we're on is not good, and it's not really...
And how much of a disaster is that? Let's accept that you're right, because everyone thinks
it's not a
right.
terminal disaster, because we saw Brazil went into junk status, and then the stock market actually did pretty well. So it's not the end of the world. I think it's inevitable because without growth in the economy, tax revenues don't go up. But I think the dominant narrative next year, there's not going to be too much at a political level except maybe minor victories and setbacks. I think the dominant economic global narrative is going to be the US election, because there we've got Trump, a Republican, probably going up against someone, and everybody loves that kind of political discourse.
Michael Bloomberg's entry into the Democratic race is interesting because...
Too old, too rich, not going to win the Democratic nomination, in my view.
Then you get an Elizabeth Warren or you get
too
a Bernie
left,
Sanders.
Too crazy, not going to win the nomination.
Then they bring Hillary back, and then we have the last
Chances
election.
are, believe it or not, Joe Biden is still in...
Too old, too...
Exactly. So I don't know. Anyway, and we'll have to see. Maybe even by then Trump has fallen on his, I don't know, sword is not the right term.
On his boxing gloves, on his Thanksgiving boxing gloves.
So who knows,
can you give me a slightly more optimistic view than certainly I feel right now and Paul feels right now?
No, look, I think that as long as the president hopefully continues to enforce some of the things that I believe he should have enforced as early as possible when he took over the country, I believe that he might be able to convince investors that he's creating the right environment, and hopefully let's see some of these investments that have been proposed for the country through his multiple investment forums. Let's see that money coming in, and I'm hoping when the cash comes in, it's got a home to go to, because it always seems like we look for this cash, but we haven't thought about what we will do with this money when it comes in, and the terms and conditions of that cash as well when it comes in. We don't want to lose our ports to China as well. But let's hope that corporate South Africa and the government and the unions potentially someday in the very near future start to see things with the same eyes, and we can take care of our problems.
Gentlemen, I'm hoping we will see you at the end of year show. The last Thursday just before Christmas, we want to have a quiz. Are you genned up enough on what has happened in 2019 to participate in a quiz? You can make you captains of two teams, and you can compete against each other.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Why not?
Nerd Fest. That'll be the last show of 2019. We'll get some of the sharpest market minds. We'll put them in a room. We'll give them buzzers and gongs and things. I will probably cheat on the score. And we'll see how well they've paid attention in 2019 with some of the more impossible questions of 2019. And then we'll ask them the most difficult question of all, which I've just devised in the background of my mind, a question looking forward into 2020. And then we'll only make the announcement of who wins at the end of next year if we're all still alive. That's it for the show for this evening. Thank you so much for watching Taking Stock on ENCA. Good night.